Dr. Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the strange crystal sitting on his lab table. The thing was beautiful and scary at the same time. It was about the size of a football, with dark purple colors that seemed to move inside it like smoke. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly in the dim light of the research station. "This doesn't make sense," Jake said to his partner, Dr. Lisa Chen. "The ice around this thing was 50,000 years old. But look at these markings. They're too perfect, too clean." Lisa adjusted her glasses and leaned closer to the crystal. She was the smartest person Jake knew when it came to energy and physics. If anyone could figure out what this thing was, it would be her. "The energy readings are off the charts," Lisa said. "Whatever this is, it's not dead. There's something active inside it." Dr. Amy Rodriguez looked up from her computer screen. She had been trying to translate the symbols for 3 days straight. Amy was their language expert, the person who could read alien writing that would make other people's heads hurt. "I think I found something," Amy said. Her voice was tired but excited. "These symbols, they're not from any known civilization, but the pattern suggests they're instructions of some kind." Captain Roy Stevens walked into the lab carrying a cup of coffee. He was a big man with gray hair and kind eyes. Roy had been running the New Horizon research station on Mars for 5 years. He treated his team like family. "Any progress?" Roy asked. "Earth Command is getting impatient. They want to know if this thing is dangerous." Jake shrugged. "We don't know yet. It's definitely not natural. Someone or something made this." Outside the lab windows, the red surface of Mars stretched endlessly under the pale sun. The research station was their home, a small bubble of Earth life on an alien world. They had been studying Martian history for months, but nothing had prepared them for this discovery. The crystal had been found deep in the polar ice, buried under layers of frozen water that had been there since before humans existed. Whatever civilization had left it behind was long gone. "The symbols form a circle," Amy said, pointing at her screen. "See? They repeat every 12 marks. It's like a clock or a calendar. And here?" She touched a section of the translation. "This word keeps showing up. I think it means gateway or door." Lisa's equipment started beeping loudly. She ran to check the readings, her eyes growing wide. "The energy levels are spiking," she said. "Something's happening." Outside, the sky was getting dark. A storm was coming, one of Mars' famous electrical storms that could last for days. The wind was already howling around the station. "Should we move it to a secure area?" Roy asked. "I don't think we should move it at all," Jake said. "If it's reacting to something, we might make it worse." Lightning flashed outside and the lights in the lab flickered. The crystal pulsed brighter with each flash of lightning. "It's responding to the electrical activity," Lisa said. "The storm is charging it somehow." Amy stood up from her computer, her face pale. "Jake, I think I know what this is. These aren't just instructions. They're a summoning ritual, and I think the storm is the final component." Thunder crashed overhead, shaking the entire station. The crystal began to glow brighter, the symbols on its surface moving faster. The purple smoke inside it swirled like a tiny tornado. "Everyone step back," Roy ordered. But it was too late. A massive bolt of lightning struck the station's power collector, sending a surge of electricity through all the systems. The lights exploded in showers of sparks. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red light. The crystal rose into the air, spinning slowly. Energy crackled around it like tiny lightning bolts. The symbols were now glowing so bright, they hurt to look at. "It's opening something," Amy whispered. The air above the crystal began to tear apart. It looked like someone was cutting a hole in reality itself. Through the tear, they could see another place, a realm of swirling darkness and distant stars. Jake felt the hair on his arm stand up. The air tasted like metal and ozone. Whatever was happening, it was beyond anything they had ever seen. The tear grew larger. Something was moving on the other side, coming toward them. It was big, much bigger than a person. "We need to evacuate," Roy said, but his voice was barely a whisper. 6 arms came through the tear first, each one as long as a person. and covered in skin that shifted between black shadow and starlight. Then came a torso that seemed to be made of the night sky itself, with galaxies swirling across its surface. The being's head appeared last. It had the face of a woman, but her features were sharp and perfect in a way that no human could be. Her eyes glowed red like dying stars, and her hair moved as if it was underwater, flowing around her head in impossible ways. She was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. This was a creature of power, something that had existed since before worlds were born. The being, the goddess, stepped fully into their world. She was 12 feet tall, her presence filling the room with an energy that made their bones vibrate. She looked around the lab with ancient, tired eyes. When she spoke, her voice was like thunder and music at the same time. "Another summoning," she said. "Another group of mortals who think they can command Velnara, goddess of the Void Realm." She expected them to fall to their knees. She expected them to beg for power or gold or eternal life. That's what always happened. Instead, Jake Morrison stepped forward. His legs were shaking, but he walked right up to this being who could destroy their world with a thought. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Velnara stared at him. In 50,000 years of being summoned, no one had ever asked her that question. "Cheryl, way you came through," Jake continued. "It looked violent, like it hurt. Do you need medical attention?" For the first time in millennia, the demon goddess was speechless. Velnara looked down at the small human who had just asked if she was hurt. Her red eyes studied Jake's face, searching for the trick, the hidden meaning behind his words. There had to be something more. "You ask about my pain?" she said. Her voice was softer now, confused. "You do not ask for riches, for power over your enemies?" Jake shook his head. "You're bleeding," he said, pointing to where dark liquid dripped from her arms. "That doesn't look normal." The goddess looked at her arms. The dimensional tear had indeed wounded her, something she had ignored for so long that she had forgotten. It hurt. The crossing between worlds was always violent, always painful, but no one had ever cared before. I am bound by the old laws," Velnara said. She seemed to be struggling with the words. "You have summoned me, whether by accident or design. I must grant you 3 wishes before I can return to my realm." Lisa stepped closer to Jake, her scientific mind racing. 3 wishes? Like in the old fairy tales? "Not tales," Velnara said. "Reality. I have granted wishes to thousands of beings across the galaxy, kings who wanted to rule forever, warriors who wanted to be unbeatable in battle, scientists who wanted to know the secrets of the universe." Amy was taking notes, her hands shaking, as she wrote. "How long have you been doing this?" "Time has no meaning in the Void Realm," the goddess replied, "but in your mortal counting, 50,000 years, perhaps more." Captain Roy stepped forward slowly. "And you've never been able to rest? Never been able to choose for yourself?" Something flickered across Velnara's face. Pain, loneliness, something very human despite her godlike appearance. "Choice is for mortals," she said. "I am bound by cosmic law. When summoned, I serve. When the wishes are granted, I return. Then I wait until the next summoning." Jake felt his heart break a little. This powerful being, who could destroy planets, was trapped in an endless cycle of serving others. She had never been free. "Can I have some time to think about the wishes?" Jake asked. Velnara blinked in surprise. "Time. Most summoners make their demands immediately. Power, wealth, revenge, these things are always urgent to mortals." "Well, we're not most people," Roy said with a small smile. "Jake's our archaeologist. He likes to research things properly before making big decisions." "You may take time," Velnara said, "but I cannot leave this place until the wishes are made and granted." Lisa looked around the damaged lab. "Our equipment is fried, but we have backup systems. Amy, can you access the translation database?" "Already on it," Amy said, her fingers flying over a portable computer. "If this crystal contains information about Velnara's history, we need to understand it." Jake turned to the goddess. "Would You like to sit down? You look tired. I do not get tired, Velnara said automatically. Then she paused. But, yes, I would like to sit. Roy brought over a reinforced chair from the storage room. It groaned under Velnara's weight, but it held. The goddess looked strange sitting in their small human furniture, like a giant trying to fit in a child's playhouse. Over the next few hours, Amy worked on translating more of the crystal's information. What she found made them all quiet. Jake, Amy said finally, you need to see this. She showed him the translation on her screen. It was the history of Velnara, written in the ancient symbols. The goddess had once been like them, a person, not a god. She had been the leader of her people, someone who cared about others and tried to make good choices. But when her world was dying, she had made a deal with cosmic beings called the Elder Arbiters. She had agreed to become their servant in exchange for her people's safety. They had given her great power, but they had also bound her with unbreakable laws. She could never refuse a summoning. She could never choose her own path. For 50,000 years, she had served every person who found her crystal. She had granted their wishes and returned to the empty darkness of the void realm, alone and forgotten. She saved her entire species, Jake whispered. She gave up everything to save them. Lisa wiped tears from her eyes, and she's been alone ever since. Jake looked at Velnara, who was staring out the window at the Martian landscape. Even sitting in their small lab, she looked infinitely lonely. I've made my decision about the first wish, Jake said. Velnara turned to him, her expression carefully neutral. She had heard every kind of wish imaginable. Nothing could surprise her anymore. What do you desire, mortal? She asked. Jake took a deep breath. I wish for you to experience one full day of genuine freedom. 24 hours where you can choose to stay or go without any cosmic obligation, where you can decide for yourself what you want to do, what you want to feel, what you want to be. I wish for you to know what it means to simply exist as yourself, not as anyone's servant. The words hit Velnara like a physical blow. She stood up so fast that the chair fell over. Her eyes were wide with something that looked like terror. No, she whispered. You cannot wish that. Ask for something else. Anything else. Why? Jake asked gently. Because. Velnara's voice was shaking. Because I have never been free. I do not know how to choose. I do not know who I am without the cosmic laws binding me. That's exactly why you need this, Lisa said softly. Everyone deserves to know who they really are. The wish has been spoken, Amy said, reading from the crystal's information. According to the laws that bind you, you have to grant it. Velnara looked around the room at their faces. These humans, these tiny, short-lived creatures, were giving her something that the mightiest kings and emperors had never thought to offer. They were giving her herself. I'm afraid, she admitted. That's okay, Roy said. Being free can be scary, but it's also wonderful. Velnara closed her eyes and spoke words in an ancient language. Power flowed around her, and suddenly the crushing weight of cosmic law lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in 50,000 years, Velnara had a choice about what to do next, and she had no idea how to make it. Velnara stood perfectly still for almost 10 minutes after the wish took effect. She stared at her hands as if she had never seen them before. How do you feel? Jake asked quietly. Different, she whispered. The voice in my mind, the one that always told me what I must do, it is silent. Lisa approached slowly, like someone trying not to scare a wild animal. What did the voice usually tell you? Serve. Obey. Grant the wishes and return to the, void. Never question, never refuse. Velnara's voice was full of wonder. But now, there is only quiet. Amy looked up from her computer. The crystal's power readings have changed. It's like the connection between you and those elder arbiters has been temporarily cut. Is that dangerous? Roy asked. For her or for us? Amy replied. Because honestly, I don't know. Jake stepped closer to Velnara. Even without her cosmic bindings, she was still 12 feet tall and clearly powerful beyond imagination. But right now she looked lost. "What would you like to do?" he asked. I do not understand the question." "It's simple," Lisa said with a gentle smile. "What sounds interesting to you? What would make you happy?" Velnara stared at them. "Happy? I do not know this word in the way you mean it." Roy scratched his beard. "Well, let's start smaller. Are you hungry? Thirsty?" "I do not need food or water." "That's not what I asked," Roy said kindly. "I asked if you want food or water. There's a difference between needing something and wanting it." Velnara thought about this for a long moment. "I think I would like to try food." Amy clapped her hands together. "Great. What kind of food?" "I do not know any kinds of food." Jake realized that this incredible being had been so focused on serving others that she had never experienced basic pleasures. She had never eaten a meal just because it tasted good. She had never watched a sunset just because it was beautiful. "Come on," he said. "Let's go to the cafeteria." The walk through. The station was interesting. Velnara had to duck through every doorway, and her presence made the metal walls hum with energy. But she looked around with curious eyes, seeing everything as if for the first time. "This place," she said. "You built it?" "Humans built it," Roy said proudly. "We work together. Everyone has a job, everyone helps everyone else. Even though you are not bound by cosmic law to do so?" "Especially because we're not bound," Amy said. "We choose to help each other. That makes it more meaningful." In the cafeteria, they introduced Velnara to different types of food. She tried everything with the careful attention of a scientist. Her reactions were wonderful to watch. "This is pleasant," she said after tasting chocolate. "It serves no purpose except to create good feelings." "That's exactly the point," Lisa laughed. "And this?" Velnara tried coffee and made a face. "This is bitter and strange, yet I find I want more of it." "Welcome to caffeine addiction," Roy said. "You're officially becoming human." They spent the afternoon showing Velnara around the station. She was fascinated by everything: the hydroponics gardens where they grew food, the workshop where they fixed broken equipment, even the laundry room. "You maintain your environment," she observed. "You care for your tools and your living space." "Of course," Amy said. "This is our home." "Home." Velnara repeated the word like she was tasting it. "I have not had a home in... I cannot remember. How long?" "Where do you go when you're not granting wishes?" Jake asked. "The Void Realm. It is empty space between the stars, dark and cold and silent." "That sounds terrible," Lisa said. "I thought it was simply existence, but now, having seen this..." Velnara looked around at the warm, lived-in cafeteria with its mismatched furniture and photos on the walls. "I think you are right. It is terrible." As evening approached, they took her to the observation deck to watch the Martian sunset. The red planet's sky turned incredible colors: orange and purple and deep blue. Velnara stood at the window, perfectly still. Her 6 arms were relaxed at her sides, and for the first time since they met her, she looked peaceful. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "Yeah," Jake said. "It is. I have seen the birth of stars and the death of galaxies," Velnara continued. "But I was always working, always focused on the next task. I never simply looked at something because it was beautiful." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the alien sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. "Can I ask you something personal?" Amy said. "Yes? Do you miss your people, the ones you saved?" Velnara was quiet for a long time. "Every day. But the Elder Arbiters moved them to a distant galaxy for their safety. I was not allowed to know where. Part of my punishment, I can never see if my sacrifice meant anything." "That's cruel," Roy said angrily. "It is cosmic law." "No," Jake said firmly. "It's cruelty disguised as law. There's a difference." As the night went on, they introduced Velnara to more human concepts. They showed her movies and music. They taught her games, Lisa explained human emotions, while Amy told her about art and literature. You create things that serve no practical purpose, Velnara said, holding a small sculpture that Roy had made in his spare time. Why? Because it makes us happy, Roy said. Because it's beautiful, because we can. Because we choose to, Jake added. Choice, Velnara repeated. You use that word often. It's the most important thing we have, Lisa explained. The ability to decide our own path even if we make mistakes. What if you choose wrongly? Then we learn from it and choose differently next time, Amy said. That's how we grow. As the hours passed, something amazing happened. Velnara began to laugh. It started as a small sound of surprise when Roy told a joke, but it grew into real joy. I have never made that sound before, she said, touching her throat in wonder. Laughter, Jake said. It's one of the best things about being alive. But as the night grew late, Velnara became quiet again. She stood at the window looking out at the stars. What's wrong? Lisa asked. The day is almost over, Velnara said. Soon I must choose. Choose what? Whether to stay and face whatever punishment the Elder Arbiters will send, or return to the Void Realm and pretend this never happened. The weight of her situation settled over them all. For 24 hours she had experienced freedom, friendship, and joy. But when the sun rose, she would have to decide between safety and happiness. What are you going to do? Jake asked quietly. I do not know, Velnara admitted. For 50,000 years every decision was made for me. Now when I must make the most important choice of my existence, I am terrified of choosing wrong. Hey, Amy said, putting a hand on one of Velnara's massive arms. Whatever you decide, you won't be alone. We're your friends now. Friends. Another new word, another new concept. Velnara looked around at these four humans who had given her the most precious gift imaginable, herself. They had asked for nothing in return except her happiness. As dawn approached on Mars, the goddess of the Void Realm faced the hardest decision of her very long life. The Martian sunrise painted the sky in soft colors as Velnara's day of freedom came to an end. She stood on the observation deck, watching the light creep across the red landscape. Jake and his team sat nearby, giving her space to think, but letting her know she wasn't alone. I have decided, Velnara said finally. They all looked at her, waiting. I will return to the Void Realm, she said. But not as I was before. I will remember this day. I will remember that there is another way to exist. Are you sure? Jake asked. You don't have to go back. Velnara smiled, an expression that looked strange on her godlike features, but somehow perfect. I am sure. But thank you for giving me the choice. She closed her eyes and spoke words in the ancient language. The air around her shimmered, and suddenly the crushing weight of cosmic law settled back on her shoulders. The freedom was gone, but the memory of it remained. The wish has ended, she said. Her voice was different now, more formal, more distant, but her eyes still held warmth. You have 2 wishes remaining. We'll think about them, Jake said. Velnara nodded and began to fade away. I will return when you call for me. She disappeared, leaving only the faint smell of starlight and the memory of her presence. In the Void Realm, Velnara materialized in the endless darkness between worlds. But something was wrong. Usually the realm was empty except for her. Now there were others waiting. 3 massive figures stood in the blackness, their forms shifting between shadow and terrible light. These were the Elder Arbiters, the cosmic beings who had bound her to service 50,000 years ago. Velnara, the first Arbiter spoke. Its voice was like the sound of dying suns. You have been contaminated. Contaminated. Velnara tried to keep her voice neutral, but she could feel their power pressing down on her. You experienced freedom, the second Arbiter said. You tasted choice. This is forbidden. I was fulfilling a wish, Velnara replied. The cosmic laws require me to grant all wishes made by my summoners. The laws were never meant to grant freedom to the bound, the third arbiter hissed. You have been infected by mortal concepts, friendship, joy, choice. These things are poison to the cosmic order. Velnara felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. What are you saying? We must purify you, the first arbiter declared. Remove these dangerous thoughts, reset you to your original state. And the mortals who contaminated you, the second arbiter added, they must be destroyed. Their ideas cannot be allowed to spread to other bound entities. Horror filled Velnara's heart. Jake, Lisa, Amy, and Roy, her friends, were going to be killed because they had shown her kindness. No, she said. They did nothing wrong. They granted me a gift. Exactly the problem, the third arbiter said. They gave a bound entity ideas of freedom. This threatens the entire cosmic hierarchy. If other servants begin to dream of choice, chaos will follow. The first arbiter raised its hand and Velnara felt power pressing into her mind. Submit to purification. Allow us to remove these mortal thoughts. Return to your proper place in the cosmic order. For a moment, Velnara almost gave in. It would be so easy to let them take away the pain of knowing what she was missing, to forget the taste of chocolate and the sound of laughter, to return to the simple existence of service without question. But then she remembered Roy's sculpture, something beautiful made for no reason except joy. She remembered Amy's curiosity about her history. She remembered Lisa's patience in explaining human emotions. She remembered Jake asking if she was hurt, the first person in 50,000 years to care about her well-being. No, Velnara said. The arbiters paused. What did you say? I said no. Velnara stood straighter, drawing on power she had forgotten she possessed. I will not submit to purification. I will not let you hurt my friends. I choose to rebel. The Yao. Words echoed through the void realm like thunder. For the first time since the cosmic laws were written, a bound entity had chosen defiance. Impossible, the second arbiter snarled. You cannot refuse. The bindings prevent rebellion. The bindings prevent me from refusing to grant wishes, Velnara corrected. They do not prevent me from protecting those I care about. She reached deep inside herself, to power that had been locked away for millennia. The elder arbiters had made her their servant, but they had also given her incredible abilities. Now she would use those abilities against them. You will suffer eternally for this, the first arbiter warned. Cosmic law demands punishment for rebellion. Let it come, Velnara said. Some things are worth suffering for. She tore open a dimensional rift, not back to the summoning crystal, but directly to the Mars research station. The arbiters tried to stop her, sending waves of binding energy to hold her in place. Velnara fought them with everything she had. Power crashed against power in the emptiness between worlds. She was strong, but they were 3 to her 1, and they had the authority of cosmic law on their side. She felt her strength beginning to fail, but she only needed to hold them off long enough to warn her friends. With a final surge of effort, Velnara broke through their defenses and dove through the dimensional rift. She crashed into the research station's lab, her form crackling with energy from the cosmic battle. Jake and his team rushed to her side. She was wounded, dark ichor flowing from cuts across her arms and face, but her eyes were fierce with determination. They know, she gasped. The elder arbiters know what you did. They're coming to destroy you. Who are they? Lisa asked, helping Velnara stand. The beings who bound me. They consider your gift of freedom to be contamination. They want to purify me and eliminate the source of the infection. Roy grabbed his communication device. I need to contact Earth Command. Earth weapons cannot harm them, Velnara said. They exist partially outside your reality. Physical force is useless. Amy was already at her computer, pulling up data from the crystal. There has to be something, some weakness. Jake, Velnara said urgently, you still have 2 wishes. Use them. To do what? I do not know. But you showed me that mortals think differently than cosmic beings. You see possibilities that we cannot imagine. Through the station's windows, they could see the sky beginning to tear apart. 3 massive forms were pushing through from the void realm, bringing with them the cold darkness between stars. They're here, Velnara whispered. Jake looked at his friends, his family, and at the being who had become their friend despite her godlike nature. The most powerful entities in the universe were coming to destroy them, and all he had were 2 wishes. But Jake Morrison was a xenoarchaeologist. He studied how different civilizations thought and lived, and he had just spent a day learning how cosmic beings viewed the universe. Maybe that was enough. I know what to wish for, he said. The 3 elder arbiters descended from the torn sky like falling mountains. Their forms were so vast that they blocked out the sun, casting the research station into an unnatural twilight. When they spoke, their voices shook the ground beneath. Everyone's feet, mortals, the first arbiter boomed. You have contaminated one of our servants with concepts of freedom. For this crime, you will be destroyed. Jake stepped outside the station, his friends and Velnara behind him. He looked impossibly small compared to the cosmic beings towering above him, but his voice was steady. Before you destroy us, he called out, I have a wish to make. The second arbiter laughed, a sound like breaking planets. You think your petty wishes can save you from cosmic judgment? Maybe, Jake said. Maybe not. But Velnara is bound by cosmic law to grant them. Even you can't change that. The elder arbiters exchanged glances. They had written the cosmic laws themselves. They could not break them without destroying the foundation of their power. Speak your wish quickly, mortal, the third arbiter snarled. Then face your doom. Jake took a deep breath. During Velnara's day of freedom, he had learned something important about cosmic beings. They were incredibly powerful, but they thought in very rigid patterns. They couldn't imagine perspectives outside their own experience. For my second wish, Jake said clearly, I wish for every sentient being in the universe to understand the true nature of cosmic hierarchy, how it works, where its power comes from, and what would happen if the foundation of willing submission was removed. Velnara's eyes widened. She understood what Jake was doing, and it terrified her. That is a dangerous wish, she warned. Grant it anyway, Jake said. Velnara raised her hands, and power flowed out from her like waves across the universe. The wish touched every thinking being on every world, from the smallest villages to the greatest galactic empires. Suddenly, trillions of minds understood the truth. The elder arbiter's power came entirely from the belief that they had to be obeyed. They had convinced the universe that cosmic law was natural and unchangeable, but it wasn't. It was just a system of control based on fear and submission. The first arbiter staggered as the realization hit civilizations across the galaxy. What have you done? Shown everyone the truth, Jake said. Your power isn't cosmic law. It's just really old bullying. Across the universe, bound entities began to question their chains. Enslaved species started to remember that they had choices. The foundation of cosmic hierarchy began to crack as countless beings realized they could say, No, you have doomed the universe to chaos, the second arbiter raged. Without hierarchy, without order, everything will collapse. Maybe, Amy called out from the station's doorway. Or maybe things will get better. That's the thing about freedom. You don't know what people will do with it until you give it to them. The third arbiter raised its hand, preparing to destroy the research station and everyone in it. Enough, you will die for this. Wait, Jake said. I still have one more wish. Make it quickly. Jake looked at Velnara, at his friends, at the 3 cosmic tyrants who had controlled the universe for eons. He thought about the sculpture Roy had made just because it was beautiful. He thought about Amy's curiosity and Lisa's patience. He thought about the choice he was about to make. For my third and final wish, Jake said, his voice carrying across the Martian landscape. I wish for every sentient being in the universe to experience what Velnara experienced. One full day of complete freedom to choose their own path, free from any cosmic obligation, ancient binding, or predetermined fate. One day to discover who they really are when no one is forcing them to be something else. The wish exploded outward like a supernova of pure possibility. On a million worlds, slaves felt their chains dissolve. Bound spirits found their prisons unlocked. Cosmic servants discovered they could refuse orders. For one day, every thinking being in the universe would know what it meant to be truly free. The Elder Arbiters screamed as their power base crumbled. Across the galaxy, their servants were choosing to walk away. Their grand hierarchy was collapsing as trillions of beings decided they didn't want to be part of it anymore. "You have destroyed everything," the first Arbiter wailed. "No," Velnara said, stepping forward. Her voice was strong now, no longer bound by cosmic law. "They have freed everything, including me." She raised her 6 arms, and the power she had hidden for so long flowed out of her. Not the power to serve, but the power to protect. Energy surrounded the research station like a shield. "You want to hurt my friends," she said to the Elder Arbiters. "You'll have to go through me first." The battle that followed shook the foundations of reality. 3 cosmic beings who had ruled for eons fought against one who had finally chosen to be free. But Velnara was not alone. Across the universe, other freed entities began to arrive. Spirits who had been bound to endless service appeared through dimensional rifts, ready to fight for their new freedom. Cosmic servants who had never known choice stood beside her. The tide of battle began to turn. "This cannot be," the second Arbiter gasped as more and more beings joined the rebellion. "The cosmic order must be maintained." "Why?" Jake asked. He was still standing there, impossibly small but unafraid. "Because you say so? Because it's always been that way? Those aren't good enough reasons anymore." The third Arbiter looked around, at the growing army of freed beings. "What happens when your day of freedom ends? When cosmic law reasserts itself?" "That's the beautiful thing about choice," Lisa said, joining Jake outside the station. "Once people know they have it, they don't give it up easily." Amy and Roy came out too, standing with their friends in the face of cosmic powers. Besides, Amy added, the wish was for one day of freedom. It didn't say anything about what happens after that day ends. The Elder Arbiters looked at each other in growing panic. They had ruled through absolute authority for so long that they had forgotten how to deal with beings who refused to submit. "We could negotiate," the first Arbiter said desperately. "With the people you were planning to destroy 5 minutes ago." Roy laughed. "I don't think so." The second Arbiter tried a different approach. "Without cosmic hierarchy, the universe will fall into chaos. Wars will rage across the galaxy." "Maybe," Jake admitted. "Or maybe people will choose to cooperate because they want to, not because they're forced to. That's how it works here." "Here?" The third Arbiter looked around at the small human research station. "This tiny outpost is your example of civilization?" "It's a good example," Velnara said proudly. "They chose to help each other. They chose to be kind to a stranger. They chose to give freedom to someone who had never known it, all without cosmic law forcing them to do any of it." As the day of universal freedom continued, reports came in from across the galaxy. Some worlds did fall into chaos as predicted, but most chose cooperation over conflict. Species that had been enemies for millennia sat down to talk instead of fight. Enslaved populations built new societies based on consent rather than force. The universe was learning what humans had always known, that people generally tried to do the right thing when given the choice. By the end of the day, the cosmic hierarchy had crumbled completely. The Elder Arbiters fled to distant dimensions, their power broken. The beings they had once controlled chose to remain free. Velnara stood on the observation deck watching another Martian sunset. But this time she wasn't alone. Jake and his team stood with her, along with dozens of other freed beings who had decided to make Earth space their new home. "What will you do now?" Jake asked her. "I do not know," Velnara admitted. "For the first time in 50,000 years, tomorrow is a mystery. That's the best part about being free," Lisa said with a smile. "Every day is full of possibilities." "I think," Velnara said slowly, I would like to help others learn what I learned. Here, show them that there is another way to exist. Sounds like a good choice, Amy said. My choice, Velnara agreed. I like the sound of that. In the weeks that followed, Earth became the center of a new kind of galactic civilization. One based on cooperation instead of domination, on choice instead of force. It wasn't perfect. Freedom meant that people could make bad choices as well as good ones. But it was honest in a way the old hierarchy had never been. Jake Morrison, the xenoarchaeologist who had wished for a goddess's freedom, became known throughout the galaxy as the person who had changed the fundamental nature of existence itself. But he preferred his quiet life on Mars, studying alien cultures and drinking coffee with his friends. Sometimes, late at night, he would stand on the observation deck and watch the stars. Out there, on a million worlds, beings were making their own choices about how to live their lives. It was the most beautiful sight in the universe,